Welcome to The One Inside, an internal family systems podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Sollenberger. I'm excited that you and all of your parts have taken time to be with me and all of my parts. If you are a coach, a client, a therapist, if you are in business or education, and you're curious about the IFS model, you are in the right place. Now, let's see what happens on today's podcast. Hey everyone, Julia S. and I planned to meet about IFS and addiction, but that's not what happened. A lot of our plans are getting changed these days and is causing a lot of our parts to react. 2 days before our recorded podcast, which was Wednesday, just this past week, Julia's county in California was ordered to shelter in place due to the coronavirus. This morning, as I'm talking to you, 2 days after our meeting, all of California is now following the same order. There is suspicion that we all will, in the next week or even few days from now, be shelter in place. It sounds like this episode is doom and gloom and heavy, but it is not. It's actually anything but that. Julia offers us hope and laughter. She is someone who's well connected to the recovery community, and she offers us some recovery terms and practices, such as avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery and pick up spiritual tools laid at my feet and use them. That sounds like IFS to me. Parts who feel afraid and go to what worked in the past to calm us down, and self who says to those parts, I am here with you. If you're hanging out with me on all the social media stuff, and if you've been listening, you know that Derek Scott and I have actually hung out a lot lately, and we published an episode together on this podcast, and then he put it up on his YouTube channel, and then he and I actually just did a full session together with him as the therapist, and I was being the client, and talking about the parts of me that are coming up. And we did a full IFS session. So that's over on his YouTube channel. If you guys want to go check that out, that would be awesome. But you get to see how IFS works if you don't know, but you sort of get to see how it works or sort of deepen your understanding, but also hopefully connect with your own parts that are coming up about this. You may have similar parts to me or just sort of working through your parts because we're all pretty activated. So one of the many gifts that Julia offers is she says, am I listening to myself as much as I'm listening to my parts? And she really has this great tool that she and her husband use where they walk through the 8 C's of self-leadership. And her and her husband, she talks about they walk this lake and they walk through the C. So she'll say, like, well, what is my part saying this? What does clarity say? And she walks through that with us and walks through what clarity is saying about the situation and what is compassion saying about this situation and what is calmness saying and what is creativity saying. It's fabulous. I've never heard it like that before. And I just thought it was great. She has created this assessment tool from the 8 C's that looks like a radar. And she talks about how she has added to the definition of the C's. And so hopefully, if I did it right, there should be a PDF file connected to the show. So if you go over to the show notes, there should be a PDF file. If there is not, then you can email me at tammysollenberger@comcast.net and I will just send you the PDF. Or you could go over to the One Inside Facebook page, let me know, and I'll see if I can post it there just so everybody has it. But hopefully, if it doesn't work, then over the next couple of days, I will figure out how to make it work. So it will be there. But anyways, go get that handout. I think it's great and it's an amazing tool to help us all just connect to self and to let our parts know that self is there no matter what happens and what is happening. Okay, enjoy this one. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Tammy.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. So,
Yeah.
thanks for meeting with me today. I'd like to start by asking where you are in the universe and what you see if you were to look out your nearest window, just to give people like an idea of where you are and
Where I am in the universe is Los Gatos, California, and we are in our second day of shelter in place. So I live in Santa Clara County. And so if you're looking at the national news in the entire state of California, my county has the highest number of the COVID-19 diagnoses, right?
wow,
Now,
okay.
so we instituted and we were received notice. I got word at about 5 o'clock Monday that as of midnight, we would not be allowed to be out unless we were explicitly going grocery shopping or to care for an elderly family member or a child.
Oh
So
my gosh.
no other things whatsoever. Now, it was like it hit me, it hits everybody kind of like suddenly. That's part of what I'm living through. I'm in the second
Wow.
day of shelter in place.
And had
Yeah,
it
it's
given
called
you
shelter in place.
shelter in place, right? Which we're all doing like social distancing
Right,
and self quarantine. Those are sort of the levels that a lot of us are dealing with
right.
right now. Okay. Do you have any idea how long you have to do shelter in place?
We were originally told that it would be until April 7th. But again, we only got the word Monday night that we would be shelter in place immediately, what felt like immediately starting
Yeah.
at midnight,
Oh my
until
God.
April 7th. So everything's shut down. Schools, churches. I mean, I don't know because I'm not leaving my house. So I can't tell you from visual, but I can tell you that grocery stores are allowed to be open. There was a list of businesses that were deemed essential.
Okay. And I'm
And so they're
assuming
still open.
the employees still are going, obviously, right? Like to
Yeah,
the if
but
you work at these places.
yeah, and then I've seen in the news, for example, that they're saying, well, restaurants can deliver, but you can't go there and eat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
We have
so
that now too. That just happened for us is all of the restaurants are closed.
mhm,
Coffee that you can go in and or you can go in and pick up your food, but
right.
yeah. Okay.
Right. So
Wow.
that's
Okay.
going on. But when I look out my window, I see a lovely bird of paradise in bloom. I see it's actually gray and overcast right now, but spring is definitely here in California, and it's very beautiful. Okay, so that the shelter in place is definitely a different, different life experience.
Yeah.
And what I also want to add is that I'm 23 years sober. My husband is 35 years sober, and we are really, really active in the local recovery community. So
Okay. Yeah.
I attend a meeting every single day. If I'm asked to speak at another meeting, I will go to my like regular 6 a.m. And
Oh,
then I might hit a noon because I was asked to speak, or a friend of mine was asked to speak, and I'll go there, and whatever, or
wow.
evenings. So usually a minimum of 7 meetings a week for me. My husband might hit maybe three or ish or something. We always joke that I'm the high maintenance one, and he calls me his Ferrari because I'm high maintenance, but I'm also high performance. So
Mm-hmm.
and there have been times when I've said, does it bother you that I need more meetings than you? Because he knows I do go to a meeting. Like I get up in the morning, that's the first thing I do. I just head straight to the meeting. And he goes, no, he goes, what I appreciate about you is you know what you need and you go after it
Oh,
and take
oh,
care of yourself.
I love
So
that.
the 6 a.m. meeting that I attend has over 100 people on a daily basis. There
Mm,
is this incredible sense of unity,
mm,
camaraderie, relationships across ethnicities, across religions, across backgrounds. It's just really
mm,
this amazing thing.
mm,
There's an amazing expression of compassion and people being there
mm.
in ways that I've never experienced. And I've attended multiple churches over the course of my over the course of my life. And just the difference that I would say is that at church, like kind of everybody gets dressed up to go to church. You might on the side talk to your really super close friends about your doubts or your fears, or the really, really close friends, or maybe only your pastor, what you really got going on the side. At least in our fellowship, we put it out there so that people can help us, what we say, practice these principles in all our affairs. There's another thing they'd say, you can either save your face or save your ass, so so why don't you save your ass, be honest, and
Yeah,
let's do some work, be it journaling, go to another meeting, call your sponsor, call your posse. We call it our posse, it's your close circle of friends.
I love
um,
that.
Go to another, read some literature, even, go for a walk with someone. I mean, it's like,
Mm,
but
connect.
so we talk about a kit of spiritual tools that's laid at our feet. And one of the phrases that I've talked about recently at meetings is, we avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery. Here we're in the middle of shelter in place, and I can either deliberately manufacture more misery around that, or I can pick up the kit of spiritual tools that's laid at my feet and use them.
So, what I'm noticing coming up for me is that there are parts of me that are, even though like I'm in my office right now, like I'm not at home, like my husband is able to work from home and he's doing the homeschooling bit. I'm able to be in my office. I've got like half clients coming in, half doing, so my life isn't super affected yet. But what I'm noticing is there parts of me are going towards those old coping skills instead of picking up the spiritual kit at my feet, the things that, like, whether it's that self energy or whether that's going for a walk or meditation or doing those things that like help me connect to self. I'm finding that even over the past couple of days I'm going to those oldies but goodies. So I'm guess I'm curious about what's that like for you, and how you're doing that. You're saying that with such passion and such confidence right now.
And I have to say that last week, okay, when all the social distancing and all of that was being talked about, and you had the usual range of reactions. It's like, what do you mean social distancing? I feel fine, you're fine. We've known each other for years.
Why
Like,
can't I hug you? Right, I
yeah,
want to
what is
hug
this?
you.
And we did start this elbow thing,
Yeah, yeah.
at meetings. We started hooking arms,
Mm, mm,
because at the end of every meeting, we grab hands, we
mm.
say the Lord's Prayer, the Serenity Prayer, and keep coming back at work. And so there were some people where you would go to hook an arm and they go, oh, I'm okay. And then some people would grab hands or not. Other people would go ahead and hook the arms. It was like kind of
Yeah.
that stage of transition. And then you look around and you go, you mean all these people that I come, and that air of familiarity is going to be taken from me with
Mhm.
one day's notice?
Yeah, what
Like,
happened inside of
so,
you? Yeah, I'm
oh yeah.
curious.
So it was like, what? And there was anger, there was shock, there was fear,
Mm,
there was grief.
mm,
There was a lot of that. But I will have to say that there was also a sense of, I'm grateful that I have attended as many meetings as I have, so that the
mm.
connections that I have built are as deep as they are.
Right.
And I know that I can now reach out to people by phone or whatever. I happened to get called on at that meeting, and then I stood up and I talked about, we avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery. So
Mm,
what are we going to do to be there for each other, even when this physical place is not available to us for the time being?
wow.
And how can we extend compassion to this church who is just trying to figure this out just like we are, as opposed to judging them or being angry at them, or all of that, right?
Yeah,
So then
yeah.
everybody's okay. So there was this hope, but there was a whole range of comments. I guess all I have to say is that I'm speaking to you, yes, and I'm shelter in place, but I feel very connected in a deep and powerful way
Yeah.
to those people that I have invested in to be connected to.
Yeah.
Now,
Mm,
one last thing I'll say about it is, word has gotten out And we now have people dialing into that Zoom call from across the country, including people who've never met us, and now including people who moved away. I've talked to 4 different people who, when they turned on the Zoom and they saw all of our faces in the little squares, they broke down in tears. 4 different people have now said that to me. And this is only, what, Wednesday? This is really the 3rd meeting we've had. I feel like I'm talking a lot and I'm talking with passion, but it's because I know that there's people that don't have it. That, okay, I'm part of a consulting team, and we decided to get together last night for St. Patrick's Day. We're all in, I guess some of us are in shelter in place. No, maybe all of us. All of us are in shelter in place across all the Bay Area, right? And so we decided just to have a little, St. Patrick's Day, hey, bring, whatever it is you're drinking and just chit chat, right? And I have to say that it was great that we did that, but it didn't feed my soul in the way that the meeting and the depth of sharing and even the banter, it's like, it's
Yeah.
not just the deep, but it's the whatever. And so I just have to say that there are some people that don't have this as part of their life experience who really need it. Now, what's good is that these meetings we're keeping them what's called open. So anybody who gets the link can come. And we're having people now from all over the country, and there was like maybe 5 or 6 out of the 125 saying, thank you so much for doing this. I don't know what I'd be doing without you. I can't wait to get to know you all. And I'll be back tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Julia, would you feel comfortable sharing that link with me, and then I can send it, because I'm going to publish this in a couple days. So could you send that to me, and then I'll put it on the show notes so that other
Yeah.
people, okay.
I'll
So,
send you a couple links
okay,
because there is I have 2 links that shows multiple meetings, multiple times, even
great,
multiple platforms.
great.
Our
Okay,
group is using Zoom, but I have another list of meetings that's using a number of different platforms: Zoom, Skype, WebEx. Some are
gotcha.
just dial-ins, that kind of a thing. So
Great.
I'll send you both.
That sounds great. I appreciate that. That's very generous. So what's coming up for me as you're talking is this power of connection. I have 2 kind of paths of thought. One is thinking of the power of the meeting and how that's been such a staple in the addiction community, and wanting to talk about that. And I'm curious about wanting to hear your story. So there's that happening for me. And the other
Mhm.
path that's happening for me is, maybe I can just say this and we don't have to speak to it, but that idea of, as we're all, whatever isolation is happening in your life, because we're all isolated and we're all, whether it's social distancing or quarantine or shelter in place, that idea that we can connect through technology, and that's still an option for people, so they don't have to feel alone, that idea that they don't have to have emotional distancing, so then their parts don't have to feel so alone, because I'm sure
Right.
that's triggering a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's just, I think,
And
maybe just needed to say that. And then I don't know if
yeah.
you want to say anything else about that, 'cause that's what I'm really hearing, is that, like, wow, because if you don't have that connection, which you have through your meetings, then how much are you going to go to the manufacturer of misery? Like, those parts are going to go, like that firefighter parts, right? The firefighters are going to be like, here's a fire of uncertainty, or a fire of financial issues, or
Mm-hmm.
fire of whatever that fire is, and your firefighters are going to come in to try to help, and they're going to
Yeah.
use alcohol or drugs or food or
Mm-hmm.
conflict or violence or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that all making sense to sort of tie those
Absolutely.
things in? Okay.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that I've experienced is, as this need for social distancing began to be like an imperative, and it's almost like, show your compassion for mankind, keep your distance, it's that
Mm-hmm.
paradox of, so, okay, right as I'm needing to keep my distance is when I need that connection. And
Yes.
so what I think
Mm.
that the ability to be more proactive. I'd have to say that I'm not the best, like, at just reaching out to people to stay in touch. I always
Mm.
figure, man, we're all living really busy lives, and like, why bother you? Why bother you, right? And it's like,
That's a
it
part.
does me. So yeah. It's like if I need to talk to you, I will, but it's like I don't, generally speaking. And now partly that is because if I need some social interaction, I'm at a meeting every day,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't anyway. So what I have learned is that when being physically with other people is now taken away from you, it's even more important to reach out in other ways.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I did, I got this poem actually, and I'd like to share it with you. It's called Pandemic, and it's written by a woman named Lynn Ungar, Ungar. And it says, "What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart, reach out your words, reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live."
Mm. What happens when you read that poem? What happens inside of you as you read it?
When I read that poem, my scared little girl that wonders what the financial tidal wave is going to do to me is reminded that it's all okay right here, right now.
Mm.
And that when the financial implications of this hit us, which could be as soon as next month or the month after, that I will still have very deep and meaningful connections that will love me
Mm.
no matter what other choices I have to make
Mm.
to deal with the restricted amount of resources that I have available to me.
Mm.
And when I got that poem, I thought of who are the people in my life over the years, not just those that I see at 6 a.m. when I walk in there and grab my coffee cup and sit down in my chair and wait for whatever's going to happen to happen. But what about those people that have touched me decades ago,
Mm.
10 years ago, 5 years ago? And so I thought of all those people and I sent that poem to them.
Oh.
And I said, thinking of you with love. That was it.
Again, connection. Again.
Yes.
Wow. Mm.
Yes. And so,
Mm.
yeah, I have parts. I have parts that are, in fear, that are really more in fear for others, more so than for myself personally. There are people that I love and I don't know how they are.
Mm. Mm.
And I have to, I have to draw upon that sense of a power greater than myself, like, and that self that is within me and that transcendent self that is in everybody.
Yeah.
And know that that self energy can bring, right? What are the 8 C's? Clarity, calm, courage, compassion, connectedness, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and there's more. Like, I mean, I could pull out more.
I know. Where's that poster in my
Just
office?
there it is.
Yeah.
This is my paperweight.
Oh, wow. I love it.
Clarity, right? What's really happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like not what's happening in my fears, but what is really
What's
happening.
reality? Yeah.
And what is reality asking me to do today, right here,
Mm,
right now. And
that's
you
great.
know, if we run out of toilet paper, what do we do then? And
Right.
we've talked about that, and compassion. It's like I'm reaching out to those people who need it, right?
Yeah.
Creativity, doing things with my time that I wouldn't have done otherwise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What new things can I do? I was just
Mm,
thinking, we have very dear relatives who live in Minnesota right now. And I just came up with this idea of reaching out to the mom. They have 4 young children, now all home from school. And I was just thinking of, what if we set up a weekly Zoom with them and we make up little skits and do them in the video? Like, me and my husband could dress up and go around and find costume, make costumes, sing songs, act silly, and then they have to do it for us, you know? And so we can do that. Anyway, that's my creative, calmness.
no, that's amazing. I'm like, wait, 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 not anyway. That's amazing because not only is it creative, it's fun, it's playful, and it's
Yeah.
connecting.
It's connecting.
And it's helping because
Yeah.
you clearly have a really strong caretaker, like a good, not that
Yeah.
parts aren't bad, but you have a really
Yeah.
strong caretaker part. And I feel like there's that you're like wanting to make sure everybody's okay. So it also takes care of that too, where you're like, I'm
Yeah.
connecting with these people and it helps them and it helps us. And
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Love
without
that.
always just calling everybody all the time and saying, "Are you okay?" That kind of like can create some fear, right?
Yeah.
Constantly asking, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
hey,
agree
how
with
about we
that.
do
Yeah.
this funny thing?
I love it.
So,
Yeah.
calmness is another. Reading that poem brings me calm.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah.
curiosity. Wow, I wonder how this is going to turn out. You know,
Mm.
I'm really fortunate. I live across the street from a lake.
Mm.
And so we are allowed to walk around our neighborhoods, we were told. So I
Okay.
cross the street and we walk around the lake. And so there was a part of me that's going, wow, I wonder how many people are going to be walking around the lake. And do you know what's amazing is that yesterday there were more people in the middle of the day than there typically are. Because it's
That's
almost
great.
like everybody who has access to the lake, we're going, hey, we're all home. Let's all go walk the lake. So
Wonderful.
it was really nice. And, and again, keep your distance. I guess my husband and I weren't keeping 6 feet because we live together and you don't
Right.
keep, like that. They're,
Right.
they're not expecting that. But,
Right.
you did have distance with other
I
people.
love that because self is also resourceful, right? So it's like,
Mm,
hey, and then maybe this part of the clarity is like, there's the lake. Let's go for a walk. So much self comes out in me when I'm
yeah.
out in nature and I'm walking or doing, exercising in some way. So
Yeah.
I love that it's not
Yeah.
like, I think there's other parts of me that are like, let's just stay in bed and, to just like
Yeah.
hide from this whole thing.
Yeah.
Probably because that's the deliberate manufacture of misery. That's that old part telling me that's how you handle hard things is you
Hmm.
hide.
Now, my husband and I, because we both know IFS, when we take our walks, what we do, that's when we do our parts inventory with each other. So we talk about what parts are up, and then we talk about what self is saying.
Okay, I need
And
to know all about that. That sounds
so,
amazing.
yeah, it's really interesting. We have some indigenous spirituality practice in our spiritual toolkit. And there's a ceremony that we do called stringing the beads, where you pass a talking piece around the fire, around the circle, right? And you speak, what is your present condition? And then basically what we did is we integrated that with IFS and says, what are the present condition of your parts? What are your
Mm,
parts saying to you? And then, so that we're also getting in touch with self, we say, well, what is self saying to you? And so sometimes we even in our walk, because it takes 45 minutes, we will go C by C by C. So what's clarity saying to me? What's compassion? What's, creativity, calmness, curiosity, confidence, courage, and connectedness? So we'll go through all the C's and
mm,
we'll say what they're saying. And one of the things that my husband said in his share as he was talking about self, he goes, myself is here looking at the magnificence of these trees and the birds swooping in to land on the lake and the calmness of the water. And they're saying, you know something? They're just fine.
wow.
And so
Mm,
that part of nature that's just timeless and constant and alive
mm,
and goes through stuff and comes back,
mm,
that resilience and beauty of nature is speaking to me right now. That's what he said as we were on our walk. And as I'm just looking around, it's like I'm going, exactly, this is like amazing.
mm.
And so I just, like that's available. I mean, I know not everybody lives across the street from a lake, right?
Right,
But,
right.
most everybody could go outside and look at the
Yeah.
sky.
And I love that and I want you to go back to it because that was beautiful, but I love the idea of going through the C's and saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, this part of me is saying this, and what is myself saying using these C's?" and just going through it. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And I
Yeah.
also love the idea that it is available to everyone, no
Yes.
matter if you live across the street from a lake or
Yeah.
whether you are not able to work right now or your situation at home is really, really hard
Mm-hmm.
that's still available to you. I love that.
Yeah.
It's hopeful.
Yeah. The calmness that I have to say that being outside and taking that walk and having opening my eyes, like, and opening my energy to really allow the trees to
Mm,
communicate that calmness to me.
mm.
Not just rushing back past them in my hurry,
Yeah.
but stopping and really looking at them and letting that come inside was very, very helpful, you
Mm,
know, not rushing past it. And the curiosity about what I'm finding is that, and what I've noticed in these 2 days, this is only the second day, but both my husband and I, it appears that like we're busier
mm,
actually with meetings. They're all on Zoom, they're all by phone, they're all that, but there's emailing, there's things that we already were working on
mm,
that we are needing to look at in a whole new way
mm.
and redesign and recommunicate and cancel this and move that up and move that back. And, you know,
Yeah.
um, I had a big consulting project that I was supposed to start next month that now is indefinitely postponed.
Mm,
And so, okay, what does that mean? How are we, are we going to reconfigure the way we're going to deploy this project, which was going to be face to face? Could we figure out a new way of serving their needs,
mm.
given that they, like us, are shelter in place,
Yeah. Well,
And
and
so what
thinking of
can we
that with
do?
curiosity, right? So you're like, okay, let me be
Curiosity.
curious about this instead of
Yeah,
probably, well, part of me would be completely freaking out.
right.
Or another thing that probably would come up for me that hasn't yet is that idea that like I've spent all this time and work getting these things in place and now it's
Exactly.
blowing up. Like this part of sort of my managers are like, wait, I spent all this time and now I've lost it. You know what I mean? Like, but it
Right.
doesn't sound like that's really happening for you, that you're really connecting to self and being curious about these changes.
Yeah, right.
Mm,
Because if I stand today, I know that my revenue estimates that I had projected over the next thing are in question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
However, if I stay in today, the lights are on, there's food in the refrigerator. I mean, there's,
We have toilet
we're
paper
all
for
okay. We
today.
have toilet
Yes.
paper, and it's like right here, right now, it's all
It's
good.
fine. Yeah.
So right here, right now, what can I do? What footwork can I be doing right here, right now
Mm,
that is going to meet the needs of my clients that I really do want to serve,
mm,
even though I might not be able to serve them when and how we originally had anticipated,
mm,
but I could serve them in this way at a different time and a different cascade and a different
mm.
pacing and all of that. And so it's like, and that requires me to sit down and be thoughtful and
Yeah.
say, what were our objectives and how can they still be met and what can they, so it goes back to that whole thing. That requires self
Yeah.
energy, right?
Yeah.
That requires creativity and clarity, especially problem solving and now analytical abilities,
Yeah.
and those since they're found mostly in the neocortex and not in the amygdala. I mean, it's like if I avoid the deliberate manufacture of misery slash fear slash anger slash whatever feelings of inadequacy, I have a very
Yeah.
active little girl, right? And so my little girl for many, many years would certainly just be talking to me constantly about feelings of overwhelm,
Mm,
inadequacy, confusion, not good
mm,
enough, all of that. As
yeah.
I've done my IFS work and unburdened her, now my little girl is playful, creative, you know,
Yeah.
just like resilient. It's
Mm,
my little girl that is my resilient part
mm.
that brings energy to things. And it's like, and she's come to trust myself that she goes, yeah, I know all the grown-ups are going to figure out the money thing. My idea is just to enjoy today. That's my job. My job is to make sure the fun factor stays as high as possible.
I like
And
it.
so,
I love
yeah,
that.
so
And I
that's the,
love this idea of well, I mean, we know this, but sort of the idea of
mhm,
unburdening is that part inside that is holding all the like the fear of inadequacy. So this is one of the other amazing little miracles of IFS is that we're just not getting rid of that part, or we're not just managing the anxiety or changing the belief around the fear of inadequacy. We're actually changing that energy to be like, we're going to use that intensity of the energy to be intensity, to have like that level of intensity in fun, in creativity, in playfulness. Like it's almost like we're taking that and turning it into this by having that part of us be unburdened. And now we have that little girl's energy to use in a different way.
right.
Did you follow
It's
that?
like, yeah, the
Okay.
way that the way that I experience it is that what my little girl would say right now is she goes, look, I know that households need money, and I know that grown-ups have to do all kinds of really hard things to go, to earn it. Hard for a little girl, but it
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be hard for the grown-ups. Meaning, they like get up, they get their laptop, they know how to use it, they tap their fingers on it, things happen, they go have meetings, they talk to people in groups, they figure out complex problems, and it all works out. And so
Ah,
the little girl says, hmm, I know that the grown-ups, that's what I mean when I say the grown-ups, meaning my grown-up,
yep.
myself.
That's right. Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I know that Julia has this very responsible part, very hardworking part, very service oriented, wants to meet the needs of her clients. And I know that she's figured out really complicated things in the past. And she's worked with difficult situations in the past. And she's
Mm,
come through them in the past. And
mm.
so now here's another one. And I don't know how she's going to do it, but I'm the little girl, so I don't have to figure it out. She's going to figure it out. My
Mm.
job is to make sure that she walks up, gets out of her chair, periodically throughout the day and notices the bird of paradise that's in bloom outside and takes
Yeah.
that walk around the lake. I was reading this thing about the problem of sedentary lifestyles, that you sit for long periods of time. And so the other day we watch movies at night. We don't turn the TV at all on during the day. And so we were watching a thing and the commercial comes on. So I say to my husband, okay, I just read this article about sedentary lifestyles. So every commercial, we're going to get up and just do some moving. And so we got up. And at first he's like sitting there going like, what? And then I said, well, it's like this, and I started moving. That was my little girl.
Yeah, I want the listeners to get your moving is not just standing up. You were actually it was a dancing. It
Oh,
was
yeah,
fingers
it's
pointed in
dancing.
the
We
air
are
and
getting
shaking
our
your thing.
groove
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
We are
yeah, yeah.
getting our groove on, right?
Yeah.
And so my husband is just like laughing, right? So that was my little girl doing her job. Like she's
Mm,
making sure we're
mm,
having fun. Now, my husband has a very active um, little boy who loves to goof off and have tree houses and do all kinds of stuff. We have fun every day. We laugh
mm,
every day. I
mm,
mean, it's even so much as we have our little blankie that we watch TV with. And lately we started having this blanket war. Like when we get up at the
mm,
end of the day to go to bed, it's like all of a sudden, like he'll throw the whole blanket on me. And so then I'll pick up the whole blanket and throw it on him. And we have this blanket war.
mm,
But it's little things like that. It's like, what do you have that's right in front of you that is
mm.
just fun waiting to happen?
Yeah, fun
And
waiting to happen. I love that. And then it's like, I like what you just said, like it's not hard for the grown-ups. Like it might be hard for
mhm,
me, and like when I'm feeling that way, or when I'm starting to feel overwhelmed by like the
mhm,
financial situation, then that idea that like, okay, that's a little girl in me and I can be with her
mhm.
and I can let her know it's not hard for me. It feels hard for
Right.
you. Or when I
Yeah.
even start hearing that in my head, like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Okay,
Mhm.
wait a minute. It's not hard for the grown-ups.
Right.
I loved that. It's
Exactly.
really
And
great.
the little girl has come to trust the grown-ups, and the
Yeah.
grown-ups have come to appreciate the break that the little girl provides to them because they
Yeah,
have to
right.
sit in these really intense meetings and pull out the spreadsheets and do all the numbers. And, that gets intense, right? Because it
Yeah.
requires a lot of focus and some decisions and weighing of alternatives and all of that.
Mhm.
And then after you put in a really good focused effort, man, to have the little girl say, okay, let's have a blanket war, it's like the grown
I
up
love
going,
that. Right,
yay,
so it doesn't have to be even though things are hard, it doesn't have to be
yeah,
hard. It doesn't have to
yeah,
be like you're finding it, like and it sounds like
right.
it's not something that's new to you. This is something that you've
No,
already been doing and you're like, we're just gonna keep doing what we've been doing.
yeah, yeah. I met Dick Schwartz in 2010, and I have to say that ever since then, it's like I wanted to learn everything I could about IFS.
Mm.
I finally got level 1 trained 2 years ago, and I'm currently PAing a level 1, so I'm helping other people learn the model, which is also a really good way of getting it deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I have a parts journal. I actually what I have two journals. I have one that I is my parts journal, where I journal from my parts and I journal from self.
Mm.
And then I have another recovery journal where I do my step work.
I
In
love that. So you journal, your parts journal is you let your parts just say whatever they want to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I do. I mean, I can show you this over the video, because not only do at first I only did a parts journal, and then I started realizing I'm really getting to know my parts, but what about myself?
Mm.
And so what I started doing is I started also journaling. See
Oh,
the 8 C's.
wow.
And so I journal, like there's myself right there. And then here's my C's. And see, here's my C's.
Okay, so
And then
how
what
can
was
that's so beautiful.
happening.
How can you describe that to the
So
listeners?
yeah, what I do is and I was the one that thought of taking Dick's 8 C's and putting them in a circle and making a radar chart out of them.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I also crafted definitions that were coming from IFS thought, right? So I
Mm.
read all of Dick's books and he'd list the 8 C's, but then I'd go, how is he defining them? Because it's not exactly the same thing as, the dictionary defines them.
Yeah,
And so I wrote these new definitions based on my understanding of what self was.
yeah.
Okay. So, because I mean, and I wrote those in 2010, like within months of meeting Dick.
Wow.
And so my practice of, for example, seeing confidence is the ability to walk into any situation and know that you can either handle or repair anything that happens. Okay.
Mm.
That's one of the definitions of confidence. I think there's like 3 or 4 that I wrote. I wrote a couple more. But anyway, so if
Wait,
I
wait, 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 wait,
know,
wait. Can I find these definitions?
yeah, I'll send them to you after this. I have them in a handout,
You need
right?
to like publish them in some way.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's on my to-do list. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dick usually hands them out when he speaks in public workshops. He'll hand out
Wow,
the
wow.
definitions and the radar chart, right? Because
I love the radar chart. The other thing I just want to say before we forget, because I'll get too
mhm,
excited and I'll forget. So what
yeah,
Julie is showing me is she's got the radar chart, and then you've kind of shadowed in, like, so there's the radar chart with the names all over, like the C's
yeah.
all over the different
Okay.
points, and then she shadowed in. Tell me about the shadowing that's
Yeah,
happening, because the
okay.
shadow looks
So
different on each
so
page.
just imagine a circle and clarity is at the north, or what would you call it? You can call it 12 o'clock. Let's say at what I would call like northeast is compassion, east is creativity, southeast is calmness, south is curiosity, southwest is confidence, west is courage, and northwest is connectedness. Okay, so that's the radar chart.
It's
The
perfect.
center of the circle is 0, and the outside perimeter is 5. So I have
Okay.
little hash marks. Okay, so then with all those axes on my circle, I say, how much clarity do I have? XYZ just happened. How much clarity do I have? Like, okay, I'm in lockdown, or what's this
Shelter
called?
in
Lockdown.
place.
Shelter in place. Okay. Feels like lockdown.
Yeah.
My door is
Shelter in
not
place
locked.
sounds, yeah, so much
Yeah,
nicer
shelter
than
in place.
lockdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in shelter in place. How much clarity do I have? Oh, my clarity is actually quite high because I know I can't drive anywhere or go anywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
So my clarity is high for today, right? My compassion, really high. My creativity, see how, so you go through each axis, and on a scale of 1 to 5, you put where you are on that particular C.
Yeah.
Then you connect the dots, and then you color in your 8 pointed figure. That gives you, and then what I call that my amoeba, my self amoeba at the moment, so
It
like,
looks like an amoeba. Yeah.
yeah, it does. Because, and the other thing about this is that it's alive.
Mm.
So
Oh,
self
yeah.
is like, it's constantly changing, right? So I could get the news that, the cases have gone down, all of our efforts are working. And all of a sudden, maybe I was in fear before that, but when I see results, wow,
Mm.
my compassion, my creativity is up now because I see hope. All these different things happen.
Mm.
So it's not a static thing.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
love that.
it's just constantly changing with the moment.
Yeah, and so then do you, if I'm sitting down with my journal and I draw out the circle, And then I'm like, okay, where am I feeling calm? And then I'm like, no, 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 no. And then do I start then saying, okay, clearly I've got some parts up and maybe they want to say something? Is that
Yeah.
kind of how you
Yeah,
begin
that's what
to?
I mean by my parts journal. So
Right.
then I will
Okay.
listen to my parts. Like, let's say my self goes really small, my amoeba's really tiny, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm freaking out about something. So then I'll say, okay, what are my parts saying? Well, my
Yeah.
little girl is saying she's scared. You know, the other, my angry part. I used to have this part called my angry teenager, actually.
Yeah. I don't
And
have one of those.
she's going,
No.
man, I want to go out where all my friends, it's like,
Yeah.
you
Right.
know, I don't
Little
like being
rebellious.
controlled. Yeah, I don't like
Yeah.
being controlled. I like doing my own thing.
Mm.
I'm not afraid. So like don't put your fear on me,
Don't tell me what to do.
don't tell me what
Mm-mm.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I just listen to all my parts.
Mm.
And then I listen to myself.
Mm.
Okay, what does myself want to tell me too? And that's what I was saying. I used to only listen to my parts and I go, wow, I'm really getting to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're wanting.
Yeah.
What does myself want me to know? What's myself thinking and feeling and wanting? Am I
Yeah.
listening to myself as
Yeah.
much as I listen to my heart?
I think that parts work has started to become really popular and other modalities are using it. People are getting really hopefully, sort of getting more and more comfortable talking to their parts or even understanding themselves as multiple, which is fabulous. I have to say, even for myself, I will often just do some journaling about what my parts are saying and then close the journal and then that's it and not have
Exactly.
have self. Like that's the biggest piece of IFS is this
Yes.
idea that we have a self.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to do a shout out to Michelle Glass, and her book Daily Parts Meditation Practice was a big influence of me. And
Mm,
I took a lot of her ideas, read that book, took her
mm,
workshop at the IFS conference,
mm.
and then added my own 8C thing. I added my own thing to her
Yeah,
suggestion about this, right?
I love that.
And what I found is that because I have spent so much time listening deeply to myself, when I go into shelter in place, I'm not a stranger to myself. I
Yes,
don't have
right.
to go on this hunt. Like, where'd you go? Where are you? You're buried. All my other parts are so clamoring and noisy that I can't even find myself.
Right.
Like, because as a practice, I listen to it, I talk to it, I relate to it. I remember to have my part a thank you to it, you
Mm,
know?
mm,
Myself says thank you to my parts for
mm,
what they bring to my life. There's this trusting, loving relationship of mutual respect
mm,
between myself and my parts.
mm.
And so when I get the notice shelter in place, I have access to that. It's
Yeah.
not like I need to build a new muscle. No, I need to use that muscle now that has already been used
Yeah.
now to deal with this new thing called shelter in place.
I love that.
Now,
Mm,
it makes all the difference in the world,
mm.
you know. When I got the notice that we were going to be sheltering in place, okay, my first reaction was, well, I know I went to the grocery store and I bought these canned goods, but I didn't even think to go buy fresh broccoli, fresh cauliflower, fresh lettuce, my fresh vegetables. And I
Yeah.
didn't buy any frozen. Anyway, I didn't, I just thought of things I didn't buy.
Yeah.
So I did head to the store and the lines were really long, and I bought food, and I was supposed to be having lunch at the Stanford Graduate School of Business with a classmate of mine who I hadn't seen since we graduated over 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I was going to meet his wife, and he was going to meet my husband, and we were just going to have this wonderful like reunion. We've maintained a friendship, and he's lived all over the world: Ecuador, Chile, South Africa, Paris. Anyway, his career took him everywhere, and we were going to be able to see each other face to face for the first time on Tuesday, the first day of shelter in place.
Oh, man.
And so I come back and I'm going, oh my God, after 30 plus years, I finally get to meet John. See John again and meet his wife,
Yeah.
and now I can't. And my husband saw that I just wept, and like, he's never met John. And he was like, who's this John? Like, I don't know. Who are you crying about now? Because I started crying. My little girl was like really sad.
Yeah.
And I go, I can't believe it. The one day, could it have not happened one day later, right?
Right.
And so my husband comforted me, and then he got this idea, and he goes, what if we just get in the car right now, drive to San Francisco to his hotel, and drive back before midnight? He goes, I think we can do it before midnight. And I was like, what? So I texted John right away, and I go, John, we can't be out past midnight. Can we come see you and Leonora right now? And he goes, wait, let me check. So anyway, he did this rearrange of his evening, and we met halfway in Burlingame.
Wow.
We were the only 4 people in this restaurant, right? Because we weren't supposed to be in restaurants, but we're the only 4, and all the staff is there. And we were telling them, you don't know how special this is. And, anyway, it was really amazing. And so we're driving back, and even my husband said, he goes, that was a good last date to have, And I hugged his wife so closely at the end and said, I feel like I've known you my whole life. And so, all I have to say is that if I didn't have access to self and my husband didn't have access to self, I don't think we would have made that trip. We wouldn't even thought to make the trip.
Exactly. Yeah.
We would have run home with the groceries, hunkered down, and started suffering.
Yeah. Started suffering.
May the suffering begin.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And instead, I have the loveliest of memories of a very special evening. And I went to my 6 a.m. meeting the very next morning full and wanting to connect with other people in my life who I'd see on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
And felt so grateful for the technology that we have available to us now that is allowing us to do it. And all of that is self. That's
Julia,
what shelter in place is like for me today, right here, right now.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. It helps to, again, count my blessings, and yeah, life isn't the way I would like it to be right now. And there are people that are suffering all around us and far away from us. And at the same time, what I'm experiencing is that is also rising up compassion to meet it, and connection to meet it, and nature to calm us and comfort us. It's like I believe that the force of life will, quote unquote, win, and that what we're called on to do and to be and to offer each other is our ability to witness and extend compassion to those who are afraid right now because of a loved one, or themselves.
Yeah.
And And then also to still bring that laughter and banter and goofiness and dressed up in silly costumes and do a Zoom with a bunch of kids who are housebound. I mean, it's like, it's the whole panorama of humanity and the human experience
Mm,
that we're called to share
mm,
in a way unlike any other time.
mm.
So we can do
That's
it.
great. Yeah.
We can do it.
I feel, if anything, I feel like hope. I just feel so much hope, and the hope of that we can do it because we have this self inside of us. We have this
Yeah.
resource. And then if I can connect to that, then I can, help my neighbor and help the people around me and help my friends in Minnesota. Like, that there's this hope, and then it gives them hope. And it's like this passing on. I can pass on hope, which I think is
Yeah.
what you're doing, is you're passing on hope, or I can pass on fear and anxiety and, the world's ending and suffering, right? I can pass on hope, or I can pass on suffering.
Yeah.
And it
And
sounds like,
Dick,
go
yeah,
ahead.
Dick has said, parts elicit parts and self elicits self.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a part, I can trigger up your parts just
Yeah.
easy, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm in self, then that will draw out the self in you, right? And
Yeah.
at the same time, when those people were grieving, like the son who lives in New York or the son who passed away several years ago, they were able to authentically bring those grieving or afraid parts to the table. But if I'm in self, I can meet them with compassion and then they feel healed, right? Their parts felt heard,
Yeah.
not shamed,
Yeah.
judged, minimized, dismissed, but they felt honored and heard and respected and loved.
Hmm.
And
And
that's what we can offer each other.
yeah. And I'm going to bring you back to the beginning, to the meetings, because it sounds like that's what's happening in the meetings. And that's part
Yeah.
of your passion of sharing that hope that you've experienced, whether it's through sobriety or through your work with IFS, which I'm sure they're connected in ways. But that idea that that's part of why you're showing up at that meeting every day, is
Yes.
that you're offering that hope to everyone else. And there's probably parts of you that need that daily reminder of hope
Yes.
too.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. As Dick Schwartz tells us, we're hope merchants.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's right.
wherever we go.
So, what I always end with is asking people, if they weren't doing all the amazing stuff they're doing, they could do anything they wanted to, what would you do?
I would create a worldwide organization that is comparable to Alcoholics Anonymous in that global meetings all over the planet where people could come and talk about their parts and their self. They would be, essentially self-led meetings that would be relevant for everyone who wanted to show up and find community in that way. That's what I would be doing.
Julia, that sounds awesome and sounds like something that you're already doing in so many ways. And
Yeah, and
wow,
I am making plans to do that.
thank you for this. This was great, and it was good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out today. If you like this episode, make sure you subscribe. And if you really like this episode, share it with a friend and leave a review. You can follow me on Instagram at IFS Tammy and join our community on Facebook at the One Inside Podcast. Talk to you next time.
Today's episode was sponsored by Brighter Vision. What's the point of having a beautiful website if it doesn't attract the clients you want to see? As the worldwide leaders of website design for therapists, Brighter Vision sees this issue happen way too often. A nice looking website doesn't equate to a successful website. The truth is, your current website might even be turning off potential clients. That's where Brighter Vision comes in. Brighter Vision's team of website designers will create a website that is centered around attracting and retaining your ideal client so that you can have a nice looking website as well as a successful one. Better yet, Brighter Vision is offering $100 off exclusively for listeners of the One Inside podcast. To take advantage of this offer, simply go to brightervision.com/inside. Again, that's brightervision.com/inside.